Hey everyone, this is Bill Krieger from the Veterans Archives podcast, where we preserve and share the incredible stories of our nation's heroes. Catch us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Wreaths Across America Radio, or stream anytime on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Really, anywhere you choose to get your podcast, you should be able to find us. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on social media to help us reach more veterans and supporters. We are a nonprofit, and this service is completely free for veterans. Every story matters, and every voice deserves to be heard. Spread the word, honor our heroes, and join us on this mission. Follow, share, and tune in, because their story should never be forgotten. Learn more at veteransarchives.org. We'll see you there. Today is Wednesday, June 4th, 2025. We're here with Susan McCain, who served in the Michigan Army National Guard. So welcome, Susan.
Thank you so much, Bill.
All right, so we're going to start out really easy, and maybe the questions will get harder as we go along. But when and where were you born?
I was born in Mount Clemens, Michigan, in St. Joseph's Hospital.
Okay. In what year?
1962.
Okay. All right. So you're a 60s, 70s kid then.
Yes, I am.
We probably have some similar stories.
Right.
I would imagine. So did you grow up in Mount Clemens?
I did not. I spent my first 5 years in Utica, Michigan, and then we moved to our new home in Sterling Heights.
Okay. And then, so how old, so you were like, 5 when you moved to Sterling Heights then?
Yes, I was between 5 and 6 because I started first grade. I'd done kindergarten at the old house. Great. First grade at the new house.
Okay. Brothers and sisters?
I have 4. I had 4.
Okay.
My oldest brother, Ken, he's 5 years older than I am. My brother, Kevin, is 4 years older than me. And my brother, Curtis, was just a year and a half older than I am, but he was born with Down syndrome.
Okay.
So he just passed this last September, so things are a little raw when I talk about him. We were the closest in age out of all my siblings. Yeah. So and then I have a younger sister who's 2 years younger than I am. Her name is Cheryl with an S, and it's Curtis with a K.
Okay.
That's what he always say. Curtis with a K, Lampar, Lambar.
Oh, how nice.
That was my main name.
Okay. All right. So you got to be the baby for a couple of years then.
I did.
I really did. Did you hear any stories about what it was like when the new baby got there and you realized it wasn't you anymore?
Well, before the new baby got there, I had already earned the name the Brat. So you can imagine the first girl being born after 3 boys. My mom said my dad was walking on clouds. And so, yeah, I was the golden child for 2 years. And I used to say that my sister came along and ruined everything, but she has been a blessing in my life, and I'm glad I have a sister.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, siblings aren't a blessing until they are a blessing.
Right? Exactly.
So talk a little bit about growing up. What was it like for you and your family as a kid?
It was, pretty dysfunctional considering, you got 5 children, and my dad worked for Michigan Bell. So he made a decent income, but needed to work a lot of overtime. So he wasn't home a lot, and he suffered with depression. Manic depression. So he was on lithium basically for his whole adult life. He only lived to 74, but and he was also an alcoholic on top of that. So that created a lot of challenges for my mother and us children. So, but we always knew we were loved.
Right.
Yeah. So we always had food and shelter and cars,
all the stuff you needed.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a bit about your mom. What was she like?
My mom was basically raised as an only child. She was like later in life child and had several older brothers. And she was somewhat of a perfectionist. Both her and my father grew up in the Catholic Church and Catholic schools. So, there was some remnants of guilt and sin and a lot of the things that come with that faith. And I've learned to appreciate it and glad that I was able to have some foundation in my faith and my spiritual life. And I always tell people I was born and baptized Catholic, married Presbyterian, and then we raised our son in a Southern Baptist church.
That's a big change.
So I consider myself very well-rounded in the spiritual realm, and I still, to this day, very strongly keep close contact with God every day, and am grateful for that heritage.
Yeah, that foundation means a lot.
It does.
Doesn't seem to at the time when you're a kid, I don't think.
Right.
But it really does mean a lot. So did you go to Catholic schools then?
I did not. No, all my siblings and I went to public school.
Okay. What was school like for you?
It was a playground. I was told by one of my bosses I was not a social butterfly, but a social animal.
Not quite a butterfly though.
Right. So it was my time to get around my friends and, just hang out. I wasn't real academically orientated. I struggled with reading comprehension. I could speed read, but I couldn't tell you what I just read. So I think I'm ADHD. If I had to diagnose myself, I've never been tested, but
right.
Yeah. So there's that.
Well, that'll present its own challenges.
Yes.
Right. So is there anything in particular, other than social aspects, anything in particular in school that really stands out to you or that you really appreciated?
Yes. I had an English teacher in middle school who tutored me with all of the nouns and verbs and pronouns and all of that. And then I had one other teacher, that was Mrs. Jarkey. And then I had Mr. Smith when I was in high school, who was my algebra teacher. And later on, when I was 26, I married my college algebra tutor.
Oh.
Because I didn't do math very well.
I failed algebra twice, chemistry once, so math wasn't my strong suit either.
Okay, gotcha.
But it's kind of cool how there's always those one or two teachers that you really remember and that stick out to you.
Yeah.
So you made it through school and you graduated. What happens next?
Well, I don't want to forget to mention Mrs. Stewart. She was elementary teacher that stands out. She was very instrumental in shaping me. Anyways, what was the last question?
Oh, just so when you graduated high school, what was kind of the next step for you?
Well, I wanted to be married. I had a boyfriend I'd been dating since I was 16, and we stayed together for about 3 to 4 years. And I just decided that I wanted more than what he wanted, and so I kissed my baseball coach. I started playing softball after high school. Moved out of the house when I was 18 and got a job working for Macomb Intermediate School District. As soon as I turned 18, I turned in the application. I got hired just a couple months after that to be a teacher's assistant for special needs children and adults. 0 to 26 was that. So that was basically my career. So I did that for 5 years. And at 23, I decided I can't afford to go to college except for one class a semester. And I'd be there. It ended up taking me 37 years to get my first associate's degree. But I really wanted a family more than a career. And so my quest was to find Mr. Right. And I found Mr. McCain. So...
and he was Mr. Right, but not Mr. Right now, right?
Exactly. But we had known each other and taught at the same school district. And at 23, I decided to join the military so I could get help with paying for college and go into nursing. Thinking that I was going to make more than I did as a teacher's aide. I didn't want to be a teacher's aide for the rest of my life, and ended up staying over 35 years, and just transferring to different positions in order to, get new experiences and different age groups, different different disabilities.
So you and Mr. McCain met. Were you dating then when you joined the military, or were you married at the time?
Well, no, there was John.
Oh, so there's more to the story.
Yes.
Okay, so you met Mr. McCain, but you didn't quite get married yet, and then you met John.
Yeah, we worked together in the same building because he would sub in the summertime because my position was year round.
Okay.
And he was off in the summer, so he would come and sub in our building. So I knew of him, and he had wanted to ask me out, but I always had softball practice after work when everybody else was going out to the bars.
Uh-huh.
So he's like, yeah, you never came out to the bar. I was waiting, So I joined the military in 85, and getting my thoughts mixed up. So I joined in 85, hoping to go into nursing. Did my basic training, did my combat medic training down at Fort Sam Houston, did my basic at Fort Dix, New Jersey. And when I got out is when I took the entrance exam for the nursing program. And they said, you didn't do too well in the math section. We want you just to go take a couple of remedial math classes at the college. And so I said, okay. So I did that. And then I took the next algebra because I knew for any degree I was going to have more than just your 100 classes.
Right. The 100 classes to get you ready for the next class, right?
Exactly. So I get into algebra and I'm like totally lost. And one of my coworkers said, call Terry McCain. He's over at the high school and he runs the algebra program. So he said, well, send me some things through the van mail and I'll let you know if I can help you. And so I did. And I actually ended up getting transferred into his building.
Oh.
And he was working at the high school for severely emotionally impaired adolescents at the time. And there happened to be an opening and I applied for it. And so he would literally tutor me after the kids left in the classroom. And he would say, X equals Y because, and I would say, I don't know. And I would cry and just carry on. And we found out our birthdays were a day apart in November. His is the 21st and mine's the 20th. There's like 4 years in between as far as our ages. But anyways, he said, do you want to come out? We're going to go see a band with some of the teachers that we work with. They play in this band at night. So we went to this local bar. It's called Wooden Nickel. And they had meatloaf sandwiches on the marquee.
Oh, there you go. Can't be all bad.
Now, his older sister is 4 years older than him, and he's 4 years older than I am. But her birthday is also on November 21st. They were born exactly 4 years apart.
Wow.
So I said, I knew your mother was organized and a planner, but that's ridiculous.
That's out there.
But anyways, my father-in-law was a Presbyterian minister. So that's why I married Presbyterian. And Terry was tutoring me in algebra and then invited me to church. And I love to sing, but I can't carry a tune to save my life.
Yeah.
So he asked me to join the choir. And I'm like, I love it. I love to sing. Well, little did he know.
How long did you stay in the choir?
Actually, we were the choir. We were the elders. We were the school teachers, school teachers. So we did a lot of everything. It was a very small congregation. It was Cumberland Presbyterian. So it was a small sect. And there's only 2 churches in Michigan that I'm aware of. But
was it a big deal for him to invite you to church?
For me, it was. I never asked him, but I'm sure it was.
Yeah. I mean, in some religions, you don't just bring anybody to church with you. It usually means something's going on, right?
Yeah.
Well, I want to put a pin in that. I want to back up a little bit though. Okay. So you joined the National Guard or the Army right away?
The National Guard.
Okay. So a lot of people don't know this, that, and I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know it either for a long time, is that you can just join the National Guard.
Yes.
Right. I always thought, because I was prior service, I always thought, oh, it's just for people with prior service that want to serve still. Nope. You can join the National Guard just like you join the Army or any other branches of service.
Right. Reserves is the same.
Yeah. So you, if I'm hearing right, though, your reasoning behind joining the National Guard was to be able to go to nursing school then.
Right. And I really didn't want to lose my job.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like the best of both worlds. I could keep this job that I've had for 5 years. I've got seniority. I've got a salary and a pension and all of that. So I just moved forward, and I'm like, okay, cool. They have to let me go, and they have to let me come back. And contractually, at the time, I was dating John, who was the union rep's brother.
Okay.
So, interesting thing about John. John was married prior to us dating, and recent, like I was his rebound, basically.
Yeah.
But he was a cook, and he was the one that went with me to see his recruiter at his unit, and that's the unit I joined, which was the 207th Evacuation Hospital Unit in Detroit, Michigan.
Okay.
So,
and this is back when it really was like 1 weekend a month,
2
weeks in the summer. Yeah. It's not like that anymore.
It's not. What is it like now?
So I got out, I retired in 2010. And if you think about the op tempo during all the wars that were going on, you were either deploying or you're preparing to deploy. So a lot of times it was, 3 or 4 weeks here and there, long weekends. Hopefully they get back to the 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks during the summer, but it really has changed quite a bit. There's a lot more emphasis on not being home. That's how it's kind of changed. But and when I first joined, it was the 2 weeks out of the year, 1 weekend a month. Anyway, so it's perfect if you have a job. You know that you're going to be gone. I guess the other question I have is, it always seemed like drill weekend fell on a weekend where there was something going on that I wanted to do.
Right. Always.
There was always a wedding or something going on, right? Is that kind of the same way for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what was it like getting to basic training? And here's another interesting thing. So I've interviewed a lot of women veterans, and Fort Dix seems to be the place, like during that 80s time frame, where a lot of women soldiers went. So you get to Fort Dix. Were you on a bus or did you fly a plane there? How did that work?
I took a plane. I took a van, and they picked me up in a van at the airport in Philadelphia.
Oh.
And then we drove from the Philadelphia airport. I actually got to go back to that airport because I missed my flight one time when I was in Vegas at a conference.
Oh.
And I'm like, cool, I'm getting off. I had a little layover, so I was able to go get me a Philadelphia sweatshirt.
Perfect. So what was it like stepping out of that van then into basic training? Were you like prepared for it?
I don't know if I ever would have been prepared for the unknown, but I think I was. I think I was physically and mentally and somewhat emotionally. Emotionally as you can be stable at 23.
Right. None of us were. Yeah. So how was basic training then?
Well, they just basically take everything that you think you could have had with you and take it away. And I became X703. That was my number.
Is that your prison number?
Yeah, right. So you were no longer Susan McCain. You were X703. And anyways, it was a challenge because I'm small.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have boots to fit my 3.5. So they had a special order and make 3.5, size 3.5 for me. And everybody was mad because I got to do PT and everything in tennis shoes.
Yeah.
So
it took a while for those boots to get there, didn't it?
Right. And then my uniform tags came back and it was spelled Lamar. So I told everybody for about 3 weeks I was P-less. because I didn't have a P in my last name on my tag. They corrected and gave me the right ones.
Yeah. Okay. And then anything stick out in your mind about basic training? Is there anything that, like, when you think about it, oh, that's what you remember?
Yeah, the shotguns. I mean, just walking between desks, and there was people in between each desk with a shotgun giving you an immunization of some sort.
Right. You didn't want to move either, because those things.
I know. And I'm like, hey, where's my list of what you guys are injecting me with?
Yeah, I want to know what this is all about.
Right. And I still wonder to this day how I could find that information out.
Yeah.
You know?
Somewhere there's a record.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't know if we can get to it, but it's there somewhere. So you graduate basic training. Did your family come out for your graduation or anything like that?
Yes, my mom and my dad and my brother Curtis came, and they their first hotel wasn't acceptable in my mother's, so they found a Holiday Inn. And I was able to go and spend the night with them before I shipped out the next day.
Okay.
So
Holiday Inn was a big deal too. Like,
right?
That was the place to stay.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember the big sign with all the flashing lights.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny that would be what your mom had to have.
Yeah, and for my dad to drive from Detroit to New Jersey, like, that was a big deal. My dad was, like I was sharing with you, he was still a very nervous person.
Yeah.
Especially with fear of the unknown. And, but he was a wonderful man. I never heard anybody say anything bad about my dad. You know, my friends used to come over. My brother used to kid around. He goes, yeah, my friends come over to have a beer with my dad, but they don't come over and have a beer with me.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you graduate and you ship out, you head to your AIT. So you're going to be a combat medic. How was that school for you?
Well, oh no, I was going to be a medical specialist. That's what the recruiter told me.
Right.
I never heard the term combat medic until I was driving in the bus from the airport into Fort Sam Houston, and there was this huge old sign and said, "Welcome to the home of the combat medic." And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder what they do.
I got on the wrong bus.
And I'm like, oh, I'm a combat medic. And I mean, nowadays when people say, oh, you're a combat medic, I never served during combat, but that was the title. And I kind of say it proudly.
Yeah.
Because I did enjoy the training. And in my service time, I didn't suffer with any MST aside from my boyfriend at the time, who was the cook in our unit, cheated on me while we were standing in line, or in formation. I seen him over there talking to some girl, and then I come to find out. Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Welcome to the National Guard.
Yeah,
I hate to say that.
Like, okay, John, I was kind of rocking the cradle over there because he was younger than me.
Yeah.
But very good looking and handsome. And, I mean, when you're in a unit and you know one of the cooks, it's a good deal.
Right. Well, and you don't want that person to be mad at you.
Exactly.
For sure. So so this was the end of you and John then?
Yes.
Okay.
So that was before I got back and took the nursing entrance exam, and kind of lost my way as we were talking. I get sidetracked very easily. But anyways, so I go back, get my college algebra tutor, Mr. McCain. We go out for the birthday celebration, and he sweeps me off my feet on the dance floor. We both had like one beer, and he's like, hey, you want to dance? I'm like, yeah, sure. And never danced with a guy that knew how to take control of me. And I was like, oh, he actually knows what he's doing.
Well, so first of all, guys don't like to generally dance anyway, so that's a score right there.
Right.
But he could actually dance.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and that first date, my sister was also there because my sister's birthday is in November. So I called her and I go, I have this date, and I'm like, I'm not really attracted like physically to him, but I really like him. He has goals. He has a teaching degree, and he's working on his master's. He's got plans and, some direction, and so different from all these other guys I'd ever dated,
Yeah.
So anyways, she came, to be part of the celebration and to, kind of support me in this like maybe first date.
Right. Always good to have a wing person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Especially if it's your sister. Why not?
Right.
Now, that story could have gone a different way. He could have liked your sister, and then you just never know.
And there's that. Yes.
So he asked you to dance, and you danced. Was it like love at first dance?
Yes, literally.
Wow.
I mean, it was kind of like a fairy tale thing that I didn't expect because I wasn't really physically attracted to him initially. And when he was tutoring me, he'd come over to my house, and I would make him dinner, and then we would do our studying, and he would keep trying to get closer and closer and like elbow me. And like, I was telling my cousin, I said, I really like this other guy at college, and I wish he'd ask me out, but Terry keeps hitting on me, and I don't know what to do.
Wow. So how long have you been married then?
It'll be 37 years this June.
Yeah. Some spark must have been there at some point.
Exactly.
Good thing you didn't date that college guy.
Well,
or did you?
No.
Oh. Okay.
No, he never asked me out. And Terry knew that I wanted to get my mom some perfume, but I couldn't afford it. So they always have these off brands that's supposed to smell like it. So little did I know he had terrible allergies, and I'm asking him to smell this because my roommate had the perfume and I had the fake stuff. And so I said, can you just tell me, doesn't this smell close enough, And he's like, yeah, I think that'll work. Well, he ended up going out and buying me a bottle of the real stuff and didn't wrap it or anything, just had it in his old jacket that I couldn't stand. And pulled it out and gave it to me as a birthday present. So another bonus, he was chalking up points left and right. So.
Right. Well, he listened.
Exactly.
He listened. He could dance and he listened. So
yes,
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
So how long did you date then?
We dated about 2 years because we were married on June 25th in 1988.
Okay.
The hottest day of the year. It was 104 degrees.
Oof.
No air conditioning in the church.
Oh my goodness. Was it the Presbyterian church? I'm assuming the Presbyterian church, right?
Yes. It's a small country church in the midst of a big city is what their little quote was.
Is that their draw?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I want to ask though, so there was no real spark for a while. Like what finally connected for you with him that you knew that you were going to marry this guy?
Well, my sister was pregnant at the time out of wedlock, and she needed a roommate. So I moved from my cousin's house when I got out of the military into an apartment with her while she was pregnant because I wanted to make sure she was taking good care of herself. And anyways, I couldn't sleep at night after the baby was born because he'd wake up all the time.
As
so
babies will do.
Yeah. And so Terry and I were dating, and I said, hey, do you think you could talk to your roommates and see if I could move in? And he goes, oh, I don't know. One was a teacher that we worked with in the same building, and the other one was an assistant like myself at the time. And so all four of us would work at the same high school.
Mm-hmm.
And that was quite a treat. But I said, I'm not moving in with you until you put a ring on my finger. I said, I've already lived with one guy, and I'm not doing it again until somebody's going to make a commitment to me. And he said, are you asking me to marry you? I said, well, I guess I am. So.
Wow. No, this whole story is just so different from anything I've ever heard. It's like I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I do want to back up just a little bit, though. So how long did you serve in the National Guard then?
8 years.
Okay.
When I enlisted, it was 2 by 6. And that meant 6 active, 2 inactive in the IRR, or 3 by 5. So 3 active, 5. And you got a $2,000 bonus if you signed on for the 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, even college is only a 4-year commitment. I think I'll give this 3 years, and then I can always re-up if it goes well.
Yeah.
And And Terry and I didn't want to have any children
Mhm.
until my obligation was fulfilled.
Right.
That obligation was fulfilled on April 26, 1993. And our son was born on July 6, 1993.
Okay. Good planning. Good planning.
Well, that was my husband's,
Yeah.
planning, because when I married him, he did not want to have any children. And we both taught, so we were with children all day.
Mhm.
And he said, I just, I'm getting older. I don't want to be 60 when our kid's walking across getting his diploma or whatever. And so we waited 5 years until after we were married. And then I finally said, okay, am I going to continue, pursuing a career in college, or are we going to start a family? And he said, do you mind waiting until September? This was like between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah.
And I said, I've waited 5 years. What's another 9 months?
Right. How could that hurt?
So in his mind, our school goes from went from September to June.
Yeah.
And so we figured if we started trying in September, that would give us that time, and maybe the baby would be conceived in the summertime when we were both off work.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
My daughter's a school teacher.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah. And her husband do not want kids. She loves teaching school and she loves kids. She doesn't want her own. I can understand that a little bit. So I do want to kind of close the chapter on the military. Is there anything from your military time that you'd like to share as we kind of move forward in your life with your husband and your children?
Yes, I guess I came to the realization what I really signed up for was when we did 2 weeks of simulated wartime up in Grayling.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to drive a deuce and a half in a convoy several times, there and back to Grayling and there and back to Battle Creek for one of our 2 weeks. But when we were in Grayling was when I really got like a vivid picture of what it would have been like if this was wartime.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to going to this 2-week summer camp, the supply sergeant who I helped out with in supply, he would call me Spud because all of the gas masks were on nails, it was numbered. And so I would help him pass out the gas masks when we were doing that training. And I could never reach most of them because they were all above. So he called me Spud. I don't know if you're familiar with Spud McKenzie.
Yeah, the dog with the
No, this and I always get the dog and the guy mixed up. And I think his last name may be McKenzie, but Spud was a basketball player and he was really short, but really good.
Yes.
And so anyways, so I've been the Brat and I've been Spud. And then when I worked in the gym, I was called Jimisu. So, and I like nicknames.
Yeah.
So it was, to me, it's endearing,
I can't let my wife hear this because she's got a million nicknames for me. I think I have one nickname for her. And she's like, why don't you have nicknames for me? I'm like, I'm just not a nickname kind of guy. So she cannot listen to this. So, okay. So yeah, like you kind of got a glimpse of, this isn't really what I want to be doing. Yeah.
And the supply sergeant had asked me to join or to be on the nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare team, the NBC team. And so he told me what it entailed, and I was honored that he asked me, and I respected him as a leader. And I thought, well, if there's anybody that I'd want to work under, it'd be you. So I was really grateful for that time. Sergeant Harrington was wonderful. He kind of, I never had to worry about the black men in the military. They were always very respectful. And I was small, so I didn't really feel vulnerable, even though I was small.
Right.
But I felt more threatened by white officers than I did any of the enlisted
Yeah. That's interesting. Is there something is that just something like this part of you, or was it something that happened that made you feel that way?
Well, there were several women in my unit that would gossip, and I'm sure I joined it all in, but there was hearsay about who slept with who to get rank and, get promoted or whatever. And I just thought, I'm not that kind of person. And I lost some respect for some of those women, but I also didn't understand a lot at 23.
Right.
And so now that in retrospect, I look back and think, well, they were doing what they were doing in a man's world to try to get ahead.
Yeah.
So I can't fault them for that today.
Right.
But, it's their story to tell and their life to live, not mine.
Yeah. People make decisions that are different from what we would do for all kinds of reasons. So, yeah.
Yep.
So it sounds like there's a lot of things kind of coming together that you decide it's time to pack it in and go. Besides, you wanted to start a family, right? So,
yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get out and you start that family pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
So how many children do you have?
We have one son, Ian Colin McCain. I have a little song that I made up for him. But anyway, I'm not going to sing it.
You sure?
But he's one of the loves of my life. Yeah, he'll be turning 32 this July 6th.
Okay.
So, and he was like his dad. He was born on his due date. So
everything right down to where it should be, right? All regimented.
Yeah. So we still had, a couple months at home with him before my husband had to go back to work in September to school. So, and I took 3 years off. I was able to take 2 years parental leave, or 1 year maternity leave, and then 2 years parental leave.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked out well because one of my coworkers wanted to work half-time and I wanted to work half-time. And I was working in the infant preschool program at the time. And so she needed the benefits and I didn't because my husband had them. And so it worked out well. We were able to job share. So I could stay home another 2 years. So.
Oh, that's perfect.
And I wouldn't lose my position.
Right.
They always have to have a position for me, but they didn't have to say that position. And one of my goals when I started with the school district was I wanted to work with the babies before I retired. And then when I retired, I wanted to retire from Lutz School for Work experience because that's the older, higher functioning adults. And so in my mind, that was my plan. And lo and behold, I was able to do that.
Wow. Did your, did having a special needs brother kind of shape the things that you wanted to do as an adult?
Absolutely. Yep. My entire life, Curtis and he took care of me when I was little. We shared the same bedroom and cribs, and he used to pull me out and teach me how to get out of my crib. And there's a story of a couple poopy diapers that got smeared all over the room while my mom was pregnant with my sister.
Oh no.
She called my dad like, "You gotta go home right now. They have everywhere." So my mom said that he would carry me to her around my neck. Like he'd just put both his arms around my neck and carry him. And so he took care of me when I was young. And then I took care of him while he was old.
Yeah.
So it was, he's such a special person. He called me his twin one time when we were going in to change guardianship from my mom to me. My mom was ailing. And like no one's ever wanted to call me their twin. Like what an honor. So I treasure that moment. Yeah.
Well, and Curtis sort of beat the odds too. I mean, he was born at a time where children with Down syndrome weren't expected to live a full life, right? But he really did.
He did.
What a blessing.
He never had the typical heart defect that a lot of Downs that have to have heart surgery. He didn't have a hole in his heart. He was always very, very healthy, very hyper. And my mom actually walked picket lines for special education so he could go to school.
Yeah.
And the programs they had available for him when he was like under 5 was at an old schoolhouse, and they would put him in a straitjacket to strap him in a chair to be able to teach him and show him stuff, because that was prior to Ritalin.
Right.
And then the Ritalin really helped as he got older and aged and went, to center program school is what it's called for special needs children.
Yeah. Well, if you think about the time, the 70s and the 80s, I don't know. I just don't feel like we really knew how to take care of people that had special needs.
Yeah.
I mean, people did the best they could.
Yeah. That was the one thing that saddened me growing up, was watching all of like the birthday parties that I was invited to and going bowling and going to the show, and like people didn't take children like that out in public. It was almost a shame.
Yeah.
And my brother, thanks to my mother, who was very involved in getting him everything and anything he could, she sold things for organizations and to raise money for these nonprofits that would help children and adults like that. And I always respected her for that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's your brother too. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
yeah. So you take a couple of years off. You go back to working at the school, and you said you were at the school for how long?
Over 35 years I was at the school district.
And you were able to like accomplish those things that we talked about then, the different places you wanted to work and all of that.
Yes, I did.
You don't seem like the kind of person that takes no. I mean, you seem very nice, but I think if someone told you no, you might get around it somehow.
Yeah, I can be a little persistent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Surely if you talk to my husband.
I'm sure. Although he sounds like he might be persistent too.
Yes, he is.
He got the girl that wasn't attracted to him to marry him and have a family. So
yeah.
So at this time too, then you changed religions, right? Because
Yes.
you were Presbyterian and now you're raising your son in the Baptist church, Southern Baptist church.
Yes. What happened was my father-in-law was retiring.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were interviewing and looking for pastors, and a female pastor came in and took over and threw away all my husband's Christian education things and files, and she was just clearing house and making herself at home without considering people's feelings and years of things so my husband, I came home from a church elders meeting and he said, I will not be going to Faith Church again. And I said, okay, can you explain to me why? And then actually at that elder meeting that I was at, the pastor was talking negatively about my sister-in-law, who was the choir director.
Oh, no.
And so I said, well, I'm really glad you said that, because I don't really want to go back either. She said some things that I wasn't really fond of about Sherry, and I don't know what's going on. And he said, Christmas is coming. It's right around the corner. He said, why don't we just try some other churches that are within walking distance? Because he said, when I was young, we always walked from the manse to the church.
Yeah.
On Sunday mornings. And he remembers doing that and he enjoyed it. So I said, I think that's great. So that's what we did. And we ended up at Lakeside Community Church. And they call themselves a community church as opposed to a Southern Baptist, but they were affiliated with the Southern Baptist Convention.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't your, can't wear pants, can't dance type of Baptist church.
Right. Right. And I've noticed that a bit, like there's used to be South Baptist Church here in Lansing, and it's just South Church now, kind of taking the Baptist out of the name. Yeah,
because it had so many negative connotations.
Right.
That came along with it. So, well,
it kind of reminds me of a little joke that somebody once told me, and I'll share it with you in the audience. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for this, but so this guy passes away and he goes to heaven. He meets St. Peter, and St. Peter's going to give him like a tour of heaven. And there's this long hallway with all these doors. And the guy says, well, what are all these doors? And the guy goes, well, these are all different denominations. And so he goes, I'll show you what's going on. So, they go to the first door, and he goes, you got to be real quiet. So he opens the door, and it's the Catholic Church. It's quiet, and they're worshiping in their way of worshiping. And, he works his way down the hall. They go to the Pentecostal church, and man, you really feel like you open the door there. And after like an hour, they get to this door way at the end of the hallway. And St. Peter puts his hand on the doorknob and goes to open the door. And he goes, now hold on a second. You need to be really, really quiet when I open this door because these are the Baptists. They think they're the only ones up here. So I think that's how it used to be.
Yes.
No offense to my Baptist friends out there, but that's one of my favorites. But yeah, so you end up finding a church that fits your needs. It feels like home to you then?
Yes. And our son felt comfortable there. The first Sunday we were supposed to go, I was actually sick.
Uh-huh.
So my husband still took our son and they still went. So I was really pleased about that. And while he was there, one of my dearest friends to this day asked him to join the choir.
Can he sing?
So yes, he can. He's had voice lessons and he's played the guitar. And so he's very musically talented.
This guy sounds amazing. He really, I'm not going to lie, like you've really built this picture for me.
Well, I'm really glad because I don't always tell him.
So now he gets to join did they ask you to join the choir?
Let's take a quick break.
Hey listeners, we need your help to keep the Veterans Archives podcast going. We're a nonprofit dedicated to preserving the stories of our nation's heroes, and we provide this service completely free to veterans. Your support helps us record, share, and archive these incredible stories so future generations never forget the sacrifices made for our freedom. Every donation, big or small, makes a difference. Visit veteransarchives.org to contribute today. Help us honor their service by ensuring their voices are heard. And thank you for your support, and thank you to all the veterans who have served our country.
Not right away, and Ian was young, and I was a very involved mother. So we had decided when we were at Faith Church, with this being such a small congregation, we were involved in so many things. I said it's not fair to Ian that we're both in leadership positions because one of us was not going to be able to go if he got sick, and so on and so forth. So I said, if you want to maintain your leadership at the church, I'm going to take a step down and take care of Ian and be able to be available for him and not have additional responsibilities at this time. So that worked out well.
Okay. So you've got a new church, and then kind of fast forward a little bit, you've gone back to work. I don't want to just breeze over, hey, I worked 35 years at the school system. So give us some highlights about what it was like to be working in the schools.
Yeah, when I first started, when I was 18, I subbed, and I learned what a severely multiply impaired child was. And that meant they were mentally impaired and had more than 2 physical handicaps. So the majority of the children we cared for were institutionalized and then bused from the nursing home to our schools. So we were getting students from the community as well, but those that were institutionalized came from Warren Village at the time in Warren, Michigan, and then several of them came from Clinton Air Nursing Home, and where my mom actually worked part-time. So it was sad when I first started in 18, and I remember coming home and asked my mom, I said, how come, these kids have to be born this way, and why, it just doesn't seem fair. And she said, well, one thing that you have to decide for yourself. She said, somebody has to take care of these children, and you just have to decide if you're going to be one of them. And that's all I needed to hear. So, my mother she was a wealth of wisdom, and we were very close.
Yeah. What a great message.
Yeah.
What a great way to explain it to an 18-year-old.
I know, right? And obviously it made an impression. It stuck with me all these years.
Yeah. It's almost like she knew what she was doing.
Yeah, right.
So you talk to me a little bit about like the rest of your time then at the school district, some of the things that you did and the people you met along the way.
So typically I would stay in positions for about 5 years. When I would look back at my career, I'm like, oh, it looks like you needed a change about every 5 years.
Uh-huh.
I would kind of figure out what my position was and the challenges, and then I beat the challenges, and then I was ready for something new. So I had the opportunity to work with the severely multiply impaired, and then I transferred after that. I was actually involuntarily transferred because while I was in the military, my boyfriend at the time was the sister to my union rep.
Uh-huh.
So he was stationed near Fort Sam Houston or in Fort Sam Houston for something. And so we were able to get together, and he said, you need to call my sister because they're eliminating your position. They're closing that school down because both of the nursing homes are getting rid of the special needs children because they make more money with geriatrics instead of pediatrics, because pediatrics are there a lot longer and they require a lot more care where, I don't even want to get into that. But anyways, so I had to make a decision while I was in Fort Sam Houston. They gave me 10 business days. They gave me 3 choices. And one of the choices was to work with severely mentally impaired adults. Well, being 5 feet tall and not weighing very much either, I wasn't really thrilled about the options I had, but that was the only permanent one.
Yeah.
So I knew the teacher and I knew the aide. And so I'm like, well, we're just going to go with it. So I moved into a school. One of the schools that my brother also attended was called Glen H. Peters in Chesterfield Township. And I was only there for about 6 months. And I went to the superintendent's office and I said, this was an involuntary transfer. And I am not meeting my students' needs because I'm afraid of them. And so I'm really doing a disservice. And I said, I go home and I cry every night because I'm so upset. And I just need to know when there's going to be another opening somewhere else because I really need to transfer. It's not fair to them and it's not fair to me. And shortly thereafter, I had taken my nursing entrance exam, and that's when I got transferred to the severely emotionally impaired adolescent building. It's called Neil Reed High School, and that's in Clinton Township, Michigan, and that's where my husband taught. So he was running the algebra program while he was working on his master's for special ed.
Oh.
So
now you said you got your nursing degree? Is that what I heard?
No.
Oh, okay.
When I was working towards it.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And as time went on, I realized that in order to be a nurse, you become an LPN back then, a licensed practical nurse. Mm-hmm. And it would have been a lateral move from being a teacher's aide to being a nurse's aide. And I would have to go back to working weekends and holidays and summers. So it kind of was, I'm like, do I really want this career? And so, then my husband and I decided we were going to start a family. So I don't have to worry about that aspect anymore. And I continued to take like one class a semester here and there, not while my son was young, but after. Like I said, it took me 37 years to get my first general studies associate's degree. And then I continued on and got my degree in mass communications in digital video production and photography.
Wow. And so how old were you when you got your degree?
Let's see.
Your bachelor's degree.
All right. I don't do math. So it was 2009 for the general studies and 2011 for the production degree, video production degree.
Yeah. Did you find it easier going to school at an older age or easier going to school when you were younger? Which one did you prefer?
Oh, much older.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still had way too much energy before Ian was born. Well, he took care of that.
Yeah. That's what kids do. I was just curious. I got my undergrad when I was 38, and then I got my master's when I was 50. And it was just a different experience than when I tried going to college when I was 18.
Yeah. Was it easier for you?
It was easier for me because I understood the game, but it was a little bit difficult too because I had to show some restraint when it came to some of the things that people would say that hadn't had the same life experiences that I had had.
Right.
So I had to show people grace.
Sure.
So I think I learned that. It wasn't part of the curriculum, but I certainly learned it. But it was a very tough lesson to learn, to be honest with you. So
yeah,
I enjoyed it. I don't think I'd do it differently. That's for sure. So how did it feel to finally get your degree though, after all that time?
it was amazing. I'm so glad that my dad was still alive, and my brother was able to bring him in a wheelchair, so he got to see me get my first general studies degree. And God bless his soul, he passed in 2010, so he passed in between finishing my 2 degrees, and I didn't have money for a computer, so I was going and taking all these digital photography classes, photojournalism, video, and I didn't have a computer, but they had computers at the college, so I was actually trained on a Mac and a PC, which was, beneficial, but I always liked the Macs better.
I was just going to ask that question because I'm a huge Mac fan.
Yeah.
Apple, if you're listening.
Right?
But yeah, they're just more intuitive, and they have a lot more power to them, I think.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it was the 80s or 90s. It might have been the 90s when they came out with it looked like a spaceship kind of and it glowed.
Yeah.
One of the first Macs, and they started getting them in at the school for the students, but also for the staff and grades and the plethora of things that we use our computers for today, right? We were just getting started. So yeah, I learned on the Mac spaceship. That's what I say.
It's funny because my younger brother owned a computer store in Minneapolis, and we went to visit him. And so this would have been in the 2000s because my kids were still little. And anyway, he had a couple of those in the back room. Yeah. And he gave them to my kids, and they just loved them. They were so cool. They had the cool colors.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We also had a Gateway when our son was young with the Cow Patch Gateway logo.
I was at my sister's house a couple of weeks ago down in Arizona, and she's got a Gateway computer, and I'm like, you got a Gateway computer? Do they even make these anymore?
I know. I was shocked to hear they were still around. That name is still around,
and they're great. I guess they're great computers. She loves hers.
Yeah, with the ginormous towers.
Yep. I remember those a lot. I think my stepdad bought a Gateway. He was a CPA. So we were like the first people to have computers on our block when I was a kid. But I remember the great big boxes.
Yeah.
Gateway computer that looked like cows.
Well, my brother-in-law is an electrical engineer, so he kind of came over and helped us told us, kind of what to buy, where to start. And, because my husband was also teaching, so he was learning the computer on the job, as was I.
Yeah.
So
you were kind of building the plane as you were flying it at that point, right?
Exactly. Exactly. But I thought it was fascinating because I always was interested in electronics. In fact, I tried to get into the Air Force and the Navy because I wanted to go into communications or learn some type of electronic skills because I knew electricians made a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, well, if I could get that training, but my math skills sucked. So
yeah, electronics, math, they all kind of go hand in hand. And it's funny because I was terrible at math. But when I went into the Navy, I was a guided missile computer technician. Okay. And so I learned math really fast because I didn't want to get kicked out of my school. But it helped me get my job at Consumers Energy, that background. So, I got the draw to the computers and all that.
Yeah.
So you spent 35 years in the school system. When did you retire?
Retired in 2018 at the age of 55.
Nice.
Yes.
It's a good age.
Yes. The contract said 30 years service at the age of 55. Those were the 2 criteria in order to, get your full pension.
Right.
And unfortunately, at 47, I went out on disability. Mm-hmm. I was severely emotionally impaired myself after working 7 years with severely emotionally impaired adolescents.
Yeah.
At the high school level, that was a split position. So I was the gym assistant at the high school for 4 hours, 4 classes in the morning. And then at lunchtime, I'd get in my car and drive over to the middle school. And then I had 8 classes in the afternoon because we did 2 classes at a time because they were severely emotionally impaired. The class size was a lot smaller, and you had aides that came with them. So that was very helpful. But in the 7 years that I served in that gym position, I had 12 teachers come and go. I survived 7. Only one of them survived 3 years, was the one that was there the longest. So 12 teachers, 7,
Yeah.
I'm getting all mixed up.
How did that impact your home life?
It was very challenging, especially my son's tumultuous teen years. He started gaining weight in the 5th grade, and then by the time he got in middle school, he was teased a lot.
Yeah.
And for any mother, that's heartbreaking when your kid's being picked on and so on and so forth. But we got through it, and when I went out on disability, he was just finishing middle school and getting ready to start high school. And I was on and off disability for 3 years, so I was able to take him to school and be more attentive to him because usually when I start something or get involved in something, I give 110%.
Yeah.
And I've learned through the years that there's repercussions for that. And he said, "Yeah, Mom, I didn't like you too much in the middle school years." I go, "Well, most middle schoolers don't like their parents at that age." I said, "But I was becoming out of control emotionally myself, and I didn't know what to do, and my body started attacking itself. I came up with a lot of these autoimmune that they couldn't identify anything, and what's the fibromyalgia?
Yeah.
That's everybody's go-to when they can't find anything, at least with women. And so they said I had peripheral neuropathy in both my feet and the carpal tunnel in both my hands, and I had neck problems, and I was a pitcher for several years in my 20s. And then when I got the gym position, well, I love softball, so we played softball more than we did anything else. But with this population, you couldn't just hand them a softball and say pitch it to your classmate because they'd throw it at them or whatever. And a lot of them hit off of a tee. So I was the designated pitcher, and I didn't realize what I was putting my body through, because then I would go play softball at night on my teams, and my principal came up to me and said, "How many pitches do you think you pitch a day?" I said, "Chris, I don't really know." And I said, "I wish you'd have never asked me that question. Now I'm really starting to think about,
Yeah.
And so I do have some degeneration on my neck, one side of my neck. But anyways, I'm aging, and, all kinds of job hazards. And I'm like, yeah, well, I got to pitch. What a job hazard. What a bad job hazard.
Yeah. Right. There's a lot of worse things out there.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. So when you were off on disability, you were kind of having some emotional problems. Was there ever a part of you that wondered if you were going to have like the same problems that your father had?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And especially because at 40, my dad retired when he was 47.
Yeah.
From Michigan Bell. He was offered, I think it was called a zip package at the time, because they were weeding out the old and bringing in the less paid younger ones.
Yep. I'm familiar with that concept.
It was recommended to him, instead of going out on medical or mental disability, to take the zip package.
Mm-hmm.
It was much more beneficial, and there wasn't all this follow-up with their doctors and all that. So it was a good decision in some ways. Unfortunately, my dad didn't have any, he didn't really do anything.
Didn't have any hobbies.
Hobbies. That's why I couldn't come
Yeah.
up with that word. Yeah. So he sat around, and that just gave more time to drink and smoke.
Yeah.
And my mom, when I was in middle school, my mom went back to work. And that was really hard on me. Being the oldest daughter, me starting middle school, like that's a whole new season of life. And you're getting exposed to all these new kids. And so I mean, my dad was home in the evening, but he would come home and take his couple shots of scotch and eat his dinner. And as soon as he was snoring, we partied in the basement all night long till my mom wouldn't be home till 11. So we had to go to school, but still, I wish that I would have made better decisions in high school. But I know I have a guardian angel, because things could have been gotten a lot worse.
Yeah, could have gotten really out of hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you draw like some parallels between, I see some similarities between like how you grew up and then how it was when you were raising your family, right? Your dad left work at 47. You were on disability at 47. Your son was pretty angry with you through junior high, middle school, because you were sort of absent for him, sort of like how your mom had to be absent for you. And
wow, I never put that together.
Yeah. I think there's a part of me that always has, I strive to not be my parents, but the older I get, the more I realize that those paths sort of run parallel in some instances. I just wondering if you kind of
that brings me some comfort, because I didn't know how to parent that age, because I wasn't being parented when I was that age.
Right.
And actually, my mother-in-law helped me in that parenting arena, because she would tell my husband, remember what you did when you were that age? And so it's really nice when people bring us back around to reality instead of what we want our reality to be.
Right. Yeah. We have our own idea of what happened, but then there's what really happened.
Yeah.
So.
And well, my sister has struggled, as all of us do, with mental health throughout the years. And when she gets in a manic state, I automatically go, oh my gosh, am I like that? Am I talking incessantly like that? And I, how do people see me? That has been a concern of mine throughout my life.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to make my way in the business world and starting my own media montage production company. I just realized I'm not cut out for this, and the business world teaches you different things and different leadership styles.
Right.
That it didn't always jive with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think, well, that's an interesting statement. I don't think I agree with that. And so it actually gave me the opportunity to see things for what they really were, and to establish my own opinion as an adult and go, oh, okay, you don't need people to keep validating you all the time, but I do. And I stay in counseling for that simple fact, because I don't want to go back, and into the wrong mindset, I should say.
Right. Well, no, as a suicide survivor myself, I can tell when I'm starting to go down a rabbit hole again. I don't want to be there.
Right.
Yeah. So you retired at the ripe old age of 55.
Yes.
And then you went into business for yourself?
Yes. While I was on disability, I found out that I had a gluten intolerance. A chiropractor diagnosed it, and I wasn't celiac, but I had a buildup, and had always had digestive issues my whole life.
Right.
And it had reached its peak. And so my body was like, you can't keep doing this to me. I'm going to fight you back. Like, I'm in control. You are not. And yeah. So one of those years when I was on disability, my motto was, I'm so not in control.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, it was a time of peace, because then I could say, oh, this is what it's like to let God lead you and not think that you got it all figured out, or that you have to get it all figured out.
Yeah.
And that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to fit into every little box that people want to put you in.
Yeah. I used to work for someone who said, she actually sent me a picture. I think I have it in my office somewhere. But anyway, it says, I know that blessings are coming my way, but the how is none of my business. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you sometimes, control is just a fallacy anyway. It's something to make us feel better, but we're never in control of anything. Right? It's just not how it works. So you learned that hard lesson. I mean, this sounds like a lot of stuff happened at 47. And so what made you decide to go into business then?
Well, I wanted to have a plan B. And I thought, well, if I'm going to be doing photography and video, fortunately, before I had our son, we had rented a small little, it was a cottage. It was 500 square feet. And they put a furnace in the middle of the house, and you had to walk sideways to get into the bathroom. And anyways, the neighbor kitty corner from us had his own video company.
Mm-hmm.
TerraVisions is what he called it, and he had the big old VHS cameras.
Put
And
it over your shoulder.
yeah.
Like a boombox kind of.
Yeah. So one summer, when I met him and realized that he did that, he needed some help.
Mm-hmm.
So he took me under his wing, and he was a retired Border Patrol electrician, and he also served in the Navy. And I don't know why I didn't find that significant, aside from the fact that I never viewed myself as a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
And I never owned or claimed or touted that I was a combat medic in the Army National Guard. I just did what I did because I did it.
Right. You did it. You got out and you moved on.
Yeah. And it wasn't until 2018, after I retired, that I started retapping into the veteran community.
Yeah.
And, met a woman who helped me own my veteran status. And I was told that guardsmen aren't, you're not a veteran, because I'm not eligible for benefits. And I said, well, I still served in the regular Army when I did my training.
Yeah.
And later on, I found that the person that said that to me didn't know what they were talking about, or they just didn't want to deal with that at the moment when I came into the office.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing too, and this is something that I've changed the way that I talk, because I was a veterans program manager for 4 years, and so I don't ask people if they're veterans anymore. I ask them if they served.
Okay.
Right, because there is that thought process that unless I was in combat, I'm not really a veteran, which is totally not true. But if you ask people if they served, they served. You served. I mean, you're a veteran, but you served. And so that's a lot easier question to answer. Hey, did you serve? Yep, I did. People are much more likely to come out and talk about it at that point. But that the word veteran has a lot of different connotations. I mean, I know it's in our name, Veterans Archives, but the first question I ask people is, did you serve? And I talked to people who I interviewed a guy a few months ago who didn't make it out of boot camp. He served he was in boot camp and he got injured really bad. So he was in the military for a while recuperating. And he's now at the Michigan Veterans Home because he was on active duty, and because of the amount of time he was in, he qualified for benefits. Okay. Which is a little bit different. But my point is that I talk to people who served for 40 years, and I talk to people who served for a year and a half, and they're all veterans to me.
Well, I have a girlfriend, Dawn, that's the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she completed basic or she left. It doesn't matter. I said, Dawn, You signed on the dotted line. You gave your life for your country. You laid your life down for your country. I don't care how long or what you did or why or anything. And so she's finally coming out to female veteran events. And yeah, she's like the life of the party.
Yeah.
I just love her to death.
Yeah. I mean, anytime someone has served, they've signed a blank check for their country.
Right.
And that's the important distinction. Now, people may disagree with me, and that's okay. Because we're not all going to agree on everything. So, yeah.
Right.
So, anyway, so you meet this guy. He does video production. He was in the Navy. And at some point, someone talks you into the fact that you are a veteran.
Yes. So, having that background with my neighbor, Macomb Community College put in the newspaper that they just had this state-of-the-art studio put in at the college, and they were starting video production degrees.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do when I grow up. So, and I never want to grow up.
Right. Of course not.
But so that was my plan B. If I was to retire at 55, then I would still have a purpose and have something to occupy my time, something to challenge me, and still serve.
Yeah.
You know, and I really did not have this part of my life planned. I didn't have, aside from like finishing my degree and loving photography and video and wanting to be a part of that industry, even though it's predominantly male, that didn't matter to me because I felt like I had an eye and a feel for it.
Yeah.
So, where are we going from there?
So we were talking about you started your business. It sounds like you learned some things from that and realized that that's not necessarily what you wanted to do.
Right. When I was diagnosed with the gluten intolerance, my good friend Simone, I spoke of her earlier, who invited my husband to sing in the choir.
Yeah.
Her and I have stayed friends, and we raised our kids together, but she had invited me to this health and wellness class that she was a part of. She said, I just joined this organization. It's called Arbonne International, and it's a health and wellness company. And she goes, I'd really like for you to come because it's all plant-based and it's gluten-free. And I said, well, I look at them as divine intervention.
Right.
Like, it was something I needed at the time. So I'm like, yes, I'll be there. And I had been so sick that week. And I was starting to feel better. And I was hesitant to go, but it was like, you need to go. And I was pretty low because I'd been on disability and da-da-da. And I was starting to get back to work. And she invited me to this thing. And I fell in love with Arbonne International. And they offered, you could become a consultant for $35. And they had Arbonne University. You could learn all about this health and wellness. It's exactly what I needed to get my body back,
Right.
and my mind. But so I am still a consultant for Arbonne International. That was in 2012 when I was introduced, became a consultant shortly thereafter. And I'm not a salesperson. I give the farm away before I make any money. And but I thought it was going to be a good business foundation for me to learn how to order things online, how to keep track of a client list, how to find leads. So there was a lot I learned along the way that was totally different than teaching special ed.
Yes.
And I'd been to a seminar and they were talking about this wheel of occupations. And they were saying how sometimes our wheels aren't aligned and we're in a position that we're really not cut out for. And sometimes we don't know how to get out of it because we can't afford it.
Right.
Or multitude of circumstances. So, anyways, I was grateful that I had that experience. And basically, at the end of my Arbonne consulting or trying to get the business part of it going, I was asked to step down because I totally did not agree with my upline and how she lied to customers and tried to upsell them about this and that. And I mean, these were my close friends and relatives, you know what I mean? And I had a totally different relationship with people than she did.
Yeah.
And so I found out that I could bow out for 6 months and then I could come back in under somebody else. So that's exactly what I did. And I'm still with the organization because I really do believe in the product. I just don't believe in their business model.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah. So we're this is right around what, like 2018, 2019 then? Is that kind of where we're at? Timeline wise?
That's when I retired.
Yeah.
And I had met a girl by the name of Shelley Rude. She runs the female peer support groups for the state of Michigan. It's a grant program. And there's several chapters that have started around the state. And so she hired me for $14 an hour to help recruit women vets.
Mm-hmm.
And I had started going to and working and volunteering for resource fairs and this and that. And one of the resource fairs, I ran into Jeffrey Devereaux, who runs No Veteran Left Behind, which is a nonprofit to help veterans. And I walked up to his table at this resource fair and I said, it was recommended to me to volunteer for a nonprofit veteran organization to do pro bono photography and video. And he said, "You just found one," with his big, deep voice. And so Jeffrey has been one of my, I want to say counselors, because he really has, counseled, and he always checks up on me. He's just one of those people that also came home from the Air Force and wasn't able to make good decisions for himself.
Yeah.
And one of the treatment court, I don't know if it was the attorney or the judge. I'm thinking it was one of the judges. And she saw the potential he had. And so she fed him and gave him what he needed to get his life back in order. And so now he's doing what you're doing. Yes, I was doing the resource fairs and volunteered for Michigan Veteran Affairs Agency as a buddy-to-buddy. And because I love people.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't want to do sales. And I tried a couple jobs. I worked at Selfridge for 4 months. And I worked for the Michigan Veteran Trust Fund for 4 months. I was nuts. And my husband's like, you really don't have to work. And I'm like, okay. I just needed to hear you say that.
Right. So we have talked about a lot of things in life.
Yeah.
Tons of stuff. As we get close to wrapping up, I want to make sure that we've covered everything you want to talk about. So is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't talked about?
Well, I can talk to the cows come home. So I think you have guided me and led me and got me back on track. I guess the one thing that, the one message that I would like to get out is it's okay to not be okay, like they're saying. I know it's kind of cliche now, but it's in those moments when we're not okay that we need somebody else to tell us that it's okay to not be okay. And you're not crazy. No, you're not crazy. And even if you were, it's just a season in time. And I've been in and out of the craziness in my head so many times. And you need to go back to those times because you're a survivor. You're resilient. You're strong. And you don't want to give up. Nobody wants to give up. But be the person that cares and that listens, and that's what we do for each other as veterans. Just be the listening ear, and you don't even have to say anything. And that's what I'm learning more and more. I'm learning how to be a much better listener, because I don't need any help talking, that's for sure. But I don't know. I don't really know how to end this, because I've enjoyed it so much. I've enjoyed getting to know you a little bit as well. And I'll look forward to listening to your interview.
Yes, that's coming up.
Is it? Oh, I thought maybe it was already on your website.
So there is on our podcast, there is an interview that I did with Talking Dog Pictures. They're a video production that works for nonprofits. So that's out there. But my son is coming to see me for Father's Day weekend. He's a veteran. And so my plan is we're going to record his story, and then he's going to interview me. So that'll be the one to look for.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I just assumed that yours was already done. I mean, I know you said you have had opportunities to tell your story, but I don't know if I didn't know if anybody just assumed somebody recorded you by now.
Well, yes. So if you go out to themoth.org, I have a couple stories out there. They've featured them during Veterans Day, actually. And then there's the USA Today Storytellers Project. There's some stories out there as well. But just to sit down and do what we've done, I haven't done that yet.
Okay.
Because I'm the interviewer, so
right.
But I got to get somebody to do it for me, and I think my son will be interviewing me very soon, so I'm looking forward to it.
What a great Father's Day present.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've had some great ones over the years, but I think this will be a really good
one. How old is your son?
Oh gosh, he was born in 88, so he will be 37 this year.
Okay.
No, 30. 1988, 25.
37.
Yeah, 37. Yeah.
You got it right the first time.
I did. Hey, see, your math isn't all as bad as you thought it was, is it?
No, and that was one thing that I realized when I was selling or trying to sell Arbonne. I'm like, my math is fine when I need it.
Yeah.
I convinced myself, that I just couldn't learn it, da 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 da. And that was one of the things I gained from doing that little aspect in my life. And I want to put a plug out, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to put a plug out to the Woven National Women's Group of Veterans. Women Veteran Network is basically like the acronym or whatever, but the word woven, it keeps us, we're all entwined together in our lives, especially veterans, in a very unique way. And they offer peer support training, but they also keep us connected, keep us woven. And I mean, I have friends in North Carolina that I've never met. They're all over the United States. In fact, June 7th, Woven is having a women recognition opportunity because it's on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do like Woven birthday celebrations on a Saturday, like from 10 to 2. And you don't have to be a member. You can just get on, and you just go to woven.org, WOVEN.org, and all the information, just keep doing all the drop downs, and you'll find the information you need to become a member or to get hooked up with a buddy. There's also the Women Veteran Peer Support that I mentioned that is available throughout the state of Michigan, and that you can find at Women Veteran Strong. I believe that's a .com, or you can just Google Shelley Rude, and she's the one that started the program. I don't know who wrote the grant, but she's the one that's maintaining it as well. And then there is, I mentioned No Veteran Left Behind with Jeffrey Devereaux in Detroit. And there is WINC, Women in Combat, which is located in Lexington. No, not Lexington. Ludington.
Mm-hmm.
I get those mixed up because I live near Lexington. So
Okay.
I say that one first. But it's Ludington, Michigan for the women in combat. And you don't have to have served in combat. It's for all women veterans. It was just the acronym when that was created because it was created by a woman that suffered severe trauma
Mm-hmm.
and created that organization to help support women vets. And her name is Zanetta Adams. You may have heard of her. She was the director of the Michigan Veteran Affairs Agency.
I interviewed her when I did a podcast for Consumers Energy. I know Zanetta.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I got to get her back in here to do her whole story, though.
Yes. Well, she's making strides for all of us veterans in Washington because she was replaced by somebody in Michigan because she had this other awesome opportunity that was given to her to, get a voice for us women veterans. And I want to mention Alexis DeRizzo, who runs Motown Women Veterans. And she wants to get women out because we isolate ourselves. All veterans can get into periods where we isolate and just want to stay in our own comfort zones. And so she plans trips. There's a Myrtle Beach trip. There's this retreat I'm going to this week, 4 nights and 5 days in Petwater, Michigan. And we just did a first ever female veteran fashion show down at Masonic Temple in Detroit, which was a blast and a lot of work for Alexis, but can't say enough about what a great experience it was.
Oh, very good. So lots of organizations out there to help veterans.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, I appreciate you coming in. It's been great getting to know you. You kind of flipped that over on me. But yeah, great getting to know you. Thanks for spending a Thursday afternoon with me, and have so much fun at your retreat. And I look forward to kind of hearing how that went.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Veterans Archives podcast. We truly appreciate you taking the time to listen and honor the incredible stories of our nation's heroes. Don't forget, you can catch us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Wreaths Across America Radio, or stream past episodes anytime on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and as I've said before, any place you can find a podcast, you can find the Veterans Archives podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share our content on YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and across all social media. Every share helps us reach more people and preserve more stories. The Veterans Archives podcast is a nonprofit initiative, and our mission is simple: to give veterans a voice and ensure their stories are never forgotten. This service is completely free for veterans because their sacrifices deserve to be recognized and remembered. You want to help? Follow us, spread the word, and if you know a veteran with a story to tell, send them our way. Visit us at veteransarchives.org to learn more about how you can get involved. Thanks again for tuning in, and most importantly, thank you to all the veterans and their families for their service and sacrifice. Until next time, take care, and we will see you on the next episode of the Veterans Archives podcast.